Alright, so to answer the first part of the questions, pre-production is more the strategic planning of the project. It doesn't really involve shooting, editing, or steps like that. Instead, it's planning an idea, how to shoot the scenes, where to shoot the scenes, and the various other possibilities that will contribute to the final project. So it's really more the early stages, and it's more of the planning stages of it. There are numerous steps in pre-production that all carry significant importance. The first one being the project proposal. This is the foundation of the project itself. It's the summary used to promote or sell a project. Without a proposal, there's no idea for a project, so you can't have a project. Along with creating a proposal, you got to have a premise. And this simply provides a concise statement that sums up the story in the project. Kind of expanding on this is the synopsis. In the synopsis, you provide more detail of the basic storyline and essentially guide the audience through the story. Next, you have a treatment, which combines these elements and adds to them as well. Treatments are very important because they not only give a detailed plot summary, but also include characters, specific scenes, and explains how you plan to capture those scenes as well. Scripts also are part of the pre-production process. They are compiled as well, and scripts are complete on-paper guides that say exactly what will be seen and heard. Hand in hand with scripts is a script breakdown, which is where you simply break down the script and you determine what personnel are needed, what equipment is needed, things like that. A production schedule is another part of the pre-production process. This must also be made, and that way there's an organized timeline for each phase of the production. Another handy step in pre-production is a storyboard, and a storyboard gives visualizations of important shots. This is very important if you want to kind of see how your project is going to go. Finally, another important pre-production step is the budget. This dictates how funds can and will be spent in each production category. Not following a budget could lead to significant money loss or even an incompletion of the project, so it's very important to have a budget. Pre-production overall I think is needed because it's the map of your project. Imagine traveling somewhere without directions and you're traveling somewhere new. You don't have directions. More than likely you're going to get lost. So without pre-production, your project may not turn out the way you envisioned it, or it may completely fall through. Kind of going off the getting lost analogy. Pre-production keeps you organized, on track, and prepared. It's going to result in a better quality project. That's why it's important. The pre-production stage relates to the other stages in a unique way. For one, it determines how and when the other stages of production will be executed. In pre-production, it's decided what equipment will be used, when the shots will happen, where they'll happen, what kind of shots you're taking. Things like this are listed in the pre-production and occur in production and post-production. It relates to the other stages because it directly influences and impacts them in these manners. The process of process of post-production can vary depending on the project itself. It takes place after the production phase and is used to create the final project. It typically involves compiling, selecting, and refining what you got out of the production phase. This first step in the post-production process is digitizing the content you created or retrieved. So this essentially means you're getting what you shot or what you got in the field onto your computer and machine. Then the editing process begins. Editing can encompass many things, including color corrections, cutting content, rearranging content, toggling with sound, all sorts of stuff like that. In a nutshell, it's basically selecting and manipulating what you got in the production phase in order to create your final project. In our audio project, for example, we had to select the particular sounds we wanted from what we retrieved. We also had to toggle with volume and effects and panning. We did numerous rearrangements until we found the sequence of sounds that we wanted. This process was very long and meticulous, which really I think is the epitome of editing and post-production. Definitely the longest part. Finally, the publishing step of post-production occurs. Here you just render your project. and it's now created and finished. You can publish it via the internet, like YouTube, or on DVDs, computer files, anything, however you wish to do so, is how you can publish it. The next two questions related to montages, and first there is the analytical montage. In an analytical montage, you analyze an event for its thematic and structural elements. You select the essential elements and synthesize them into an intensified screen event. There are two types of analytical montages. First, you have sequential analytical, which is where you just take an event and you kind of lay out its key developmental elements and present them in a cause and effect kind of way. This tells a story in a shorthand fashion, and it moves it through time. It doesn't pause on one moment. It's a progression. An example of this is in the film Goodfellas, where Henry was describing how Jimmy had whacked people to cut connections to him. It shows multiple people Jimmy killed in order to clear his name in a montage format. Here's the example.
Jimmy was cutting every link between himself and the robbery, but it had nothing to do with me. I gave Jimmy the tip and he gave me some Christmas money. From then on, I kept my mouth shut. I knew Jimmy. He had the cash. It was his. I know he kicked some money upstairs to Paulie, but that was it. Made him sick to have to turn money over to the guys who stole it. He'd rather whack them.
And next you have a sectional analytical montage, which temporarily stops the progression of an event and it kind of examines it at that moment. It can go from different viewpoints, and the main point of this is to really kind of intensify the scene. It adds a lot of emotional power to it. It really kind of enhances the quality of the moment and the importance of the moment as well. An example of this is in the show Eastbound and Down. On one of Kenny's the main character is Kenny Powers, on his final pitch with the Texas Rangers, there's a montage showing Kenny, the batter, the catcher, the crowd, and it all kind of bounces back and forth between those different characters and viewpoints, and it really intensifies the final scene, and it adds an emotional intensity to it. And here's an excerpt of that.
That was the moment I realized I'd finally achieved everything I worked so hard for. Despite the countless obstacles and adversities I faced along the way. It was that exact moment when I looked into that batter's eyes and I saw...
And then after analytical montage, you have idea associative montages, and these basically juxtapose two or more different events to kind of create an idea or concept. Comparison idea associative montages consist of succeeding shots that juxtapose two thematically related events to express or reinforce a theme or basic idea. So basically, you just have two different things that you want to show to make one idea. An example of this is the Cincinnati Reds intro video played at the beginning of home games. In this, there are shots of action from Reds games paired with shots from notable Cincinnati landmarks. And this montage's purpose takes the locations of the city with the Reds baseball to reinforce the idea that Cincinnati baseball is an important and historical facet to Cincinnati life, just like the locations that are shown on. Alright, and finally we have a collision idea associative montage, which is when you clash two different events or things and you have this new idea. And this montage is actually one that we're doing right now in our video project. Ours is it highlights two characters. One's active and determined, another is lazy and apathetic, and we go back and forth between showing these two characters and kind of colliding the ideas of active and lazy